So now I wanted to show you how you should be installing those extensions, which is directly in front of your client. So now we're going to continue to work. I'm going to take my section directly next to that one that I just did, making sure that it is the correct width that I want it, and I don't have any little crosshairs. So again, making sure I get rid of any of those crosshairs. And then I'm going to go in with my shield, slide it up and drop it down to where I want it to be. Now I can take my extension and I'm going to pick up that hair, put the extension underneath, drop it down to where I want it, always making sure that it's in line with my other ones. And then I'm going to go in and gently heat that bond, push the keratin through, and then I can just roll that around the natural hair very, very gently. I always feel my bonds as well. I want to make sure that they don't have any sharp edges. It should feel like a little pearl in that natural hair, and that's exactly what these feel like. They feel very, very soft, and I know that it's not going to snag on my client's comb. If you have edges within that K-tip, then when your client goes in and combs their hair or brushes their hair, they're more likely to snag on that top of the hair extensions, which can be really uncomfortable and then can lead to pulling out that extension. Continuing to work, taking my next section directly next to this. What you could do if you wanted to, you could actually go in and have your subsection ready to go if you wanted to. Because we're taking them straight all the way across, you could even take a subsection like that, and then you could put a Velcro underneath it. And then that way, all you have to do is go through and slice out those sections. So that's one way. I'll show you now how you could work really quickly. So I'm going to take my subsection here, making sure it's all nice and even. And then I can go in with my little gripper here. And then that way, that section, the subsection is already carved out. And then now all I need to do is just slice across here. Feel like I'm always looking for ways that I can speed up my installs and make them efficient without compromising on the quality. So now I'm going to take my extension, and again, it's all very repetitive with keratins, but I feel like that's why the more that you do, the quicker you're going to get. And then now go in, heat up that bond, push the keratin through, and then just gently roll. It's already sectioned off, so now I can take my section like that, just slice across, go in with my shield, drop down to where I want it to be, and then pick up my keratin, slide it under, drop it down to where I want it to be, and then go in and heat that up. And then gently roll. One thing that I want to show you is something that I see a lot of stylists doing that could kind of compromise your install. So everything could be right, your section size is right, you drop down enough, all the things, but then you go in and you heat up that keratin. So let me show you. You're going to go in, you drop it down, everything looks good. You heat up that keratin, and then you drag it like that. So you drag it and you roll it. And what that is going to create is a little bit of snail trail above that bond here. So then it creates a longer looking bond. So So you want to try and avoid doing that as much as possible. It's really important that we're intentional with our movements. And I'm always trying to work at low elevation as well. So you can see here, I'm working as low as possible and then rolling. And that way we're going to keep those extensions as flush to the natural hair as possible. If we're working at that high elevation, then what might happen is you're going to have an elevated looking keratin extension. So again, always making sure that we're working at low elevation. 0 degrees is ideal, but obviously not possible because we have to put our keratin tool in and we have to roll, but again, as low as possible. Picking up my bond. I'm going to pivot my mannequin before I do that, just to make sure that I'm standing perfectly in front of her. Also, side note, from time to time you might see a lens coming in from that direction. So this is my zoom close-up camera, so please ignore it if you see it coming into the shot. I'm just trying to get as many angles as I can for you guys, because I feel like with keratins it's so detailed and it's so up close. So I really wanted to show you and demonstrate as much as possible without leaving any secrets behind. Almost like you're a little angel on my shoulder watching me work. Okay, so picking up my section, putting that keratin underneath, dropping it down to where I want it, and then just eating that extension up. See that keratin comes through and coats that natural hair, and then I'm just going to go in and pull. Now I can see I'm getting a little bit of a buildup of that keratin on my tool, which is normal because at this point I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 bonds actually, because I just removed one. So because I've done 10, I know that it's about time I need to start wiping this down. The reason that we want to do that is we don't want any of those keratin strings. Sometimes that happens when there's a buildup of keratin as well on here. So to avoid any sort of keratin string, I'm going to go in now. I'm going to take my towel and I'm just going to wipe off my tool. And it's super easy. I'm just going to literally wipe it like that. Making sure I get the little edges as well. And then I can continue to work. So now I've reached the end of that subsection. So I'll just gently remove that Velcro. And I'm going to go in, pivot my mannequin so that she's standing directly in front of me, and then I'm just going to go in and carve out that subsection again. Making sure everything is nice and clean. You want to make sure that that subsection lines up perfectly with that section on top. Once I'm happy with that, I'll get my little gripper and go in and just secure all of those little hairs underneath. So now that I've got my subsection, I can go in and just carve out my section for my K-tip, and then just slide up my shield, take my extension. So we were talking a little bit about keratin strings. So let me show you what I mean by that. This usually happens when you have a buildup on your tool or you overwork that bond. So let's say I'm going to heat up my extension, and then I'm going to heat that up, and then if I pull that away, can you see I'm creating these little keratin strings? So we don't want to do that. When we are taking our tool off of our extension, the best way that you can do it is to gently lift off the tool. You don't want to drag that tool away from the extension, then you're going to create strings, and then you can almost overstretch that bond and then make it more difficult for you to roll it. So you don't want to pull off that tool, you want to just gently take it away. So I'm going to show you that one more time just so you can see what I mean. My extension. see I'm like lifting that off the hair. So with keratins, I feel like once you get it down, you're going to be able to work really quickly. If you're doing just a volume install like what we're doing today, it's going to take you anywhere between like half an hour to an hour and a half. And then of course, the quicker you get, the quicker it will take. A full head of K-tips when you first get started might even take you closer to 6 hours if you're doing a lot of grams. And honestly, that's okay, it's normal. But once you get to grips with it, you can easily do a full head in 2 to 3 hours, I would say, on average. It's just about getting those movements down and working quickly. I feel like if I can work with an assistant when I'm doing a K-tip install, that's my preferred way to work, because then that way they can hand me my tool, they can hand me my bongs. All I have to do is just stay where I am and just roll them into the hair. So if I was working with an assistant at this point, she would hand me my tool and my K-tip extension. So she would hand me my K-tip in this hand and she would hand me my tool in this hand. And then what I would do is I would go in, put my keratin underneath, and then I would heat up that bond. And then at this point, I would hand that tool to her and she can put it down. And then all I have to do is roll. I'm definitely someone that has learned how to work as efficiently as possible behind the chair. And one way that I started to utilize, that efficiency for me was by hiring an assistant. It's honestly been such a game changer for me, because then I feel like I'm working, first of all, smarter, not harder. And then also I'm able to manage my time a lot more efficiently. So for example, with my assistants, what they will do is they'll actually do most of my removals for me. So then all I have to do is come in and do the actual install. And then I always try and do the finishing work, cutting, blending, and then sometimes they might even go in and style. Okay, so now you can see we're working more into this hairline area here. Typically on most clients, this is where their hair is going to be the finest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more full-size bond here, and then up until around this point, about an inch away from the hairline, I'm going to do some mini bonds and I'll show you how to cut those down. So let's do one more full-size bond here. I'll do my subsection first. I'll take my Velcro. And then I'm going to do one more full-size bond here. So these bonds, actually, talking about full-size bonds and the gram weight. So these are 0.7 grams per bond. So typically with this pack it was 16 inches, 15 grams a pack, and you get 25 pieces for that pack. So that means that each actual strand is going to be about 0.7 grams, which is actually a really nice density and super easy to work with. Sometimes if that bond is too thick, it makes it so hard to roll, and honestly it looks like a bit of an eyesore in the hair. Okay, so that was my last full-size bond. So now I'm going to show you those little mini micro bonds. So picking up my K-tip, you can see it's already cut to the size that I want for a full size. Now if I want to make it a micro or a mini, all I have to do is go in and just cut that in half. So then now I have two little, they're about 3.5 grams per strand, and these are going to be perfect for those really delicate areas around the hairline. Because when I go in and put my shield in place, remember how I said I'm not adjusting the size of the section, I'm only adjusting the density of extension that I'm putting on that extension. That's what I mean by that. So I know that I'm going to have less hairs within that section, so then my extension should mimic that and have less hairs or less gram weight. So now I'm going to take my section, take my shield. Everything is going to be the same. The only thing that has changed is the actual size of that bond. And then because it's a micro, you're going to find you probably won't have to heat it up for as long. So I'm going to go in about 2 seconds, and then I'll just gently roll. And that will be my little micro keratin extension. And then now I'll probably be able to do about 3 or 4 of those here. So now let's do our second one. Again, we're not pivoting the section size. The only thing that we're changing is how much hair we're putting onto that section. I feel like by working this way, it means that I'm able to get a really consistent feeling and looking install. It's all about how it feels in your client's head. You don't want it to feel tighter in some areas and looser in others. Roll. And now I'm going to show you one more time how to cut that bond. So I'll take my extension and I'm just going to go directly down through the middle and just cut that in half. Taking my section, my shield, and again, same thing that we've been doing. Take the hair, put it under and drop it down where I want it to be. Because of how tiny these micros are, I feel like you can break the rules a little bit. So remember how I was saying with maybe your wefts or your tapes, you have to really kind of stick to that 1-inch rule. With these, because of how small they are, you can bend the rules slightly. So if she has enough density here and I'm not working into that baby hairs, then I might be able to get away with doing 1 more here. But for the sake of this, let's pretend we can't, then I wouldn't risk it. We can sort of see that comb, so I'm not going to risk it. So now that I've finished all of this side, that's when I can start to come back to where I started and work my way around to the other side. The way that we do that is exactly the same as what we've just done. So now you should kind of be getting used to it, understanding a little bit more about how it works, and you can start to fly through that install. So let's go on and just kind of finish off whatever I have remaining on my tray. Again, I'm going to just subsection off. I feel like it's just such a quick way that you can work. So now I'm going to just carve out my subsection, making sure it's all nice and clean. And then I'll go in with my gripper and then just section off those hairs. Now again, not changing anything about the section size, keeping it all the same. And then I can go in with my shield. One thing that I do is I do keep a little bit of tension, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So if I don't have tension, then it's going to be really hard for me to control that hair. And then if I try and do that, it's going to be hard, and then I could drop it down lower than I want. So what I do is I do have light tension. You don't want it to be too tight where you're almost pulling that hair away from the scalp, and then it's going to bounce back and the bond will sit higher than you want. You want to just do enough tension just to make sure you have control. So I'm just going to hold it with my index finger, or even with my thumb and my index finger. Put that extension underneath, drop it down, and then slide it down. And then I transfer that tension to this hand. So that's what I want to do. I want to make that transfer. So I'm going to hold it with my index and my thumb, put the extension under, pull it down, and then now with my thumb and my index on this hand, I'll transfer, and then I can hold it like that. So again, holding it, putting the bond under, dropping it down to where I need to be. Then with my tool, I can go in, and then roll. I'm going to show you one more time. So again, with your index finger, or even sometimes I'll do it with my middle finger and my thumb, making sure I have tension here, I have nice control of the hair, not pulling it off the scalp, and then putting my bond under, pulling it down to where I want it, and then I can let go, because now I'm holding it and keeping tension with this hand, and then I'll drop that down to where I want it. And I'll go in and gently heat up that extension. Take my tool off, not pulling it away, and then just gently roll that bond. Even when I'm sectioning, I have tension. If I don't have tension, then it's hard to get a clean section, and you kind of end up with lots of crosshairs. So again, when I'm sectioning, keeping tension, holding it, keeping tension, putting my shield in, keeping tension, and then clipping it down.